I am smack bang in the middle of the amazing Manchester beer scene. This is Sureshot, and sat inside is Sean Forde, and he's going to tell us everything about Milson. Sean, absolutely fantastic to see you again at the home of Sureshot here in Manchester. Thanks very much for hosting the Malt Miller. Sean, it's pretty special what you've done here in a relatively short time. We can go more into that a little bit later. What brought you here? What your journey so far?
I pretty much went straight out of high school into a brewing and distilling degree at Watt. Never really did anything before brewing. Came out of uni, worked in gin for a bit. And then decided it wasn't really for me.
Beer world's way more fun, yeah?
Yeah, beer's more interesting to kind of brew. There's more stuff going on per day. Like gin's very like kind of regimented, same thing every day. Not much kind of going on to fix and stuff, whereas brewing's very different. So then when I was on there, I ended up moving down to London for a few years and brewing in a couple of places there.
Yeah.
And then eventually ended up moving back to Manchester and joining Sureshot.
Was Sureshot already an entity then, or is this something that you set up? Or
well, so Sureshot was originally started by my dad and James Campbell at the start. I was always supposed to join very early on, but before we opened as a brewery, we did have like a couple sort of like collabs before I was like officially here, while I was still working down in London.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like contract brewing, but it was like we were just kind of involved in a couple of beers before we were like an official entity. So like as soon as we had a physical site, that was when I kind of came in to run kind of more of the brewing aspects and like the physical day-to-day stuff.
So Sean, actually, Sureshot's actually only 3.5 years old, and you've achieved a huge amount in that time. You must be really proud.
Yeah, I think in the current industry, it's quite tough, especially since COVID, because we started pretty much just after COVID.
Yeah.
It's a very different market to what it used to be before that. So it's been quite difficult to kind of get a foothold. But I think considering how long we've been going, we're very well established for kind of like the size we are. I think we're kind of seen around a lot of the country now. And obviously Manchester itself, although it's good in one regard because there's lots of good breweries, so there's lots of people to learn off and work with, but also that technically makes it more competitive as well. Not that like you see each other as like competitors, but it's Manchester in particular. I think it's quite a hard place to kind of build yourself as like a good brewery compared to what's already here.
Actually, your location here is really good because you've got, like you say, possible competition, but also it's like a magnet for drinkers because you've got really good breweries along with yourself, like really close.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I suppose a lot of people probably know like Bermondsey in London as like that, whereas here it's almost like a mini. If you come out the station, you've got Balance just down the road, then you can come to us. Then Track and Cloudwater just another few minutes down the road, so you've got like a nice little crawl of some of the best breweries in the country.
Yeah,
really.
A hub of like tap rooms that are a destination for people. You've also been nominated for Young Brewer of the Year.
It's nice to be nominated for these sorts of things. I kind of see it more as like the brewery's doing well. You know, it means our beers are quite well regarded, I think. So it's good to be in these sorts of things, but rather than being like a win for me, I'd see it as like a win for the team that we're kind of putting out good beers that are kind of being recognised.
So actually looking at Sureshot, what do you think like separates you? What's special about Sureshot?
I suppose a lot of people probably know us for our labels. Firstly, it's a weird one because they're very distinctive, but they're all very different.
Yeah.
It's not like you wouldn't look at the design and go, that's a Sureshot label, but they do all have the swish, which is kind of, we wanted something that was like, even though each label looks completely different, you still can tell it's a Sureshot label. So when you look at a shelf, you do see the swishes and you do go, oh, there's like Sureshot's there. So I think like the marketing's been, and labels have been really good for getting people in, and obviously we're kind of known for having long, silly names, which I think does work. And like it's nice to kind of, you know, we just mess around at the brewery and just kind of come up with these names and then put them into like a chat. And it's good to just kind of everyone have their own names and kind of go, oh, I've got that on a beer, and it's good to have that sort of stuff. And then obviously for me, I'm more beer side, so I think in terms of beers, like what we tend to focus on is kind of drinkability. We like, so like when we're producing like a pale ale or an IPA, compared to some other breweries, we're probably a little drier at the end, kind of. It's not like as juicy as some places. It's more like we look at beer that you can kind of drink at a session. Even at the higher ABVs, it's still like we don't want to produce beers that are just like quite hard to kind of drink over a long time. Like I myself drink mostly like low ABV pales. So we put like a lot of work into kind of getting like a good kind of big flavor in those beers, but still, then again, you can still drink a lot of them over a long time. And
so that's like the SureShot essence, but it's not just IPAs and pales that you're doing here.
Yeah, we've kind of, like originally we were very focused on kind of producing good pales and IPAs, because obviously that's kind of the bulk of the market, and it's kind of beers that we drink. But obviously being up north and in Manchester, we kind of started doing cask over the last sort of year, I guess. We probably started early last year, and I'm quite happy with the cask we're putting out. It's still mostly hazy cask. I'd like to kind of do more traditional cask, but it's kind of finding, so obviously we're more known for one thing, so I kind of want to get into that as well, because it's nice to kind of do different recipes and kind of go back to some of the classics and try and make some stuff like that. And then we've kind of been pushing more into imperial stouts lately. Originally we were kind of doing, kind of like old school ones, like I guess like Russian style, but we're kind of looking more at doing kind of the big thick ones, kind of the ones that people drink now. And then ideally as well, like I like our West Coast and I'm very happy with them, but I'd like to brew more. I'd like to play around with them. Like, there's a lot of beer styles where it's like we like brewing them, but we don't brew enough of them, because we kind of have a lot of the hazy beer that we are originally known for that we like to sell. And we like to produce those, but I'd like to spread out even more into some more styles.
So the super exciting thing for us and our customers is you've been generous enough to give us the recipe for Milson, which is absolutely banging beer. What do you like about it?
Yeah, Milson is kind of one of the earliest beers we brewed, and we kind of tried it early on, and we were like, I think this is probably something that we can kind of replicate going forward and kind of try and build a sort of good brand around it. And it's very much like I was saying before, we make beers that we think are more drinkable, even though it's at 5.2% and it's quite hoppy. It's also kind of got this kind of bitterness and almost dryness at the end that kind of makes it very sessionable. So we find it's very good to just drink as like, even though it's like a kind of, like I say, a big hazy hoppy beer, it's still like something that you can just session all day. You might wake up the next day not feeling great, but it's kind of like we're very happy with it as a beer, and we just think it's an all-round good brand as well. We talked
a little bit about names, and normally your beer names are quite long. Milson obviously isn't long. Where did the name come from?
It's from our Friday night dinner.
I thought it probably would be.
When Wilson dies and gets replaced with Milson.
Milson.
Exactly. And then I don't know whether it was kind of a conscious thing early on, but I think in the long run, we've kind of realised that potentially core beers work better shorter as names. And the kind of longer ones work better to kind of bring people in off a shelf and go like, oh, I'll try that because it's got like an interesting name. Whereas like, if you go to the bar and like every time you order a pint, it's like you're saying like a whole paragraph.
Read a sentence,
Whereas like if you just walk to the bar and go out of a pint of Milson, it works quite well. We're actually brewing a batch of Milson next door right now, so we can go through, kind of get a deeper look at kind of the processes we do here, kind of go through the recipe and see what the brew team are up to right now.
Awesome, let's go.
While you're there, we might as well get you to dig out the mash tun.
Yeah, I thought as much. So Sean, now that I've dug out the mash tun and the wort is in the copper, can you tell us a little bit about the backstory of the brew kit and like size and specs, that sort of thing?
Originally, we this is the Railway Arch and Track brewery we used to be in. So when we first moved in, we were using their old brew kit, which was a 12 hectolitre brew kit, and we had the same FVs that we have now, so it's 30 hec FVs. We had to double brew and then liquor back like 800 litres to get a batch done. About 18 months ago now, I think, we upgraded to this kit, which I was going to say new kit, but it's not new. It's third hand. So it was originally Verdant's brew kit.
Right.
And it was a 20 hec, and they sold it on to 360 Brewing, who then converted it into a 30 hectolitre kit by like welding just more on top. So it's a bit of a weird kit, but it works. It's pretty old
Proof
school.
is in the drinking, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like the main issue with it is that because we're in railway arches, you can't have like gas-powered steam in here.
Yeah.
So it has to be an element-based kit. It can cause issues with colour of the beers, so we do quite short boils to kind of avoid darkening the beers too much.
Got it. Yeah, because it can be quite aggressive.
Yeah, and you get a bit of caramelisation on the elements, so it kind of it affects the way we have to brew because we use this sort of kit, but it works.
So there's a batch of Milson that's actually in the copper now. How long's the boil on that?
35-minute boil on a Milson. So like I say, we have to keep it fairly low to avoid too much colour. Probably lower than like a lot of people are kind of used to boiling beer for. I suppose typical is like an hour.
Yeah.
It's no DMS. We kind of originally had to like work the boils down a bit until you could sense any DMS, and then we worked back up, and 35 minutes was kind of about where you weren't getting too much colour, and then also the beer was tasting fine.
Got it. Right, let's look a little bit more about the actual detail of the beer. Tell us about the grist.
Like originally it was super simple. It was just extra pale oats wheat. Over the last kind of 6 months or so, we've introduced some chit and spelt. Now it's just fairly simple. Base of extra pale. We tend to split between Simpsons and Crisp. And then oats, wheat, chit and spelt. And we find the chit and spelt edition is really helping with head retention.
So not just one or the other, but the combination of both chit and spelt like supercharges the head on the beer, or?
I mean, I suppose they're both different. Like, I suppose spelt's more like an ancient wheat, and chit's kind of the low germination. So I suppose they're both offering different things to it. I mean, you two both had a pint of Milson last night. You could see the head kind of stuck all the way to the bottom of the pint, which is kind of what we're aiming for with that sort of beer.
So looking at the mash schedule of the beer, can you tell us a bit about that?
We have about a 35-minute mash. We strike at 77.5. We tend to get about a 10-degree loss in temperature, so mash temp's about 67.5. So we let it sit. We give it a mash rest for about 35 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we do a recirc for another like 40 minutes.
Okay, so you're simply just recirculating the volume of the mash tun.
Yeah, so we basically just have a little underback that comes out the bottom of the mash tun, and then it goes up through a hose, and we've got like a little fishtail, and it just disperses it over the top of it.
Yeah.
So we get clear work basically.
Yeah, so I guess then it's a sparge and transfer straight into the copper.
Yeah. So like the same way we'd recirc, where it comes through the underback, we just change one valve, and it'll go direct. We have a hose that comes through under the kettle, because we want to avoid hot side aeration as much as possible.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So yeah, you're basically filling the kettle from the bottom up.
Yeah, we kind of, like I was saying before, with being on elements, being Arista colour, I think also it means we kind of tend to limit the oxygen at this stage, because we do find it can cause like darker beers. So when we mash as well, we'll keep it very minimal in the amount you actually mix in the mash.
Yeah.
And then like same when we go into the kettle, you're not stirring much, you're bringing it through the bottom. Actually,
this is sort of kind of gold information for both us when we try and rebrew Milson, but also for our customers when they're brewing it as well. And I know that there is this constant argument about, is it a real thing, or like hot side aeration, and but you're believing that it's really it really does matter.
Yeah, we from working on our kit, we believe that it does affect the colour of the beer.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would do it on every kit, but working with elements where, like I say, they're more prone to producing colour anyway. It was mostly the mash where we were having the issue, so we did really stop kind of mashing kind of very hard, and it did seem to improve the colour of our beer quite a lot.
Just be gentle.
Yeah,
there's
like very gentle
things in brewing that just be gentle with.
Yeah, exactly.
So into the copper then. What about the boil additions?
So we would tend to use for Milson, it would be Rakau. We do quite a small bitter in charge of it's about 600 gram, which tends to bring us to about 6 IBU.
Right.
So just enough to kind of, so you can sense a little bit of bitterness, but not like, it's not overly bitter.
Rakau is quite an interesting hop to use for what you're using it for. Where did that come from? Why the use of Rakau?
So we've found Rakau is very good at complementing other hops. Like, it's not a hop that we look at as like a Citra or a Nelson. Like, it's not like one to lead a beer for us.
Yeah.
Like, it does have its uses and it tastes good, but we started kind of pairing it with other New Zealand hops originally, and then originally we used to use like a lot of Centennial in the boil, and then we started trialing like other hops, and then eventually when we started using New Zealand hops, it seemed to promote haze quite a lot in the final product.
Yeah.
So we were on Southern Cross for a while, but it's quite hard to get hold of, so we ended up moving over to Rakau for Milson, and we find that it just kind of, it helps with haze for us, it seems to, in the final product, and it does seem to kind of complement the hops that are in Milson quite well. It kind of gives it these sort of top notes that you don't normally get off. Because the rest of Milson hops are American and Australian, so very different to New Zealand hops we tend to find.
End of boil, your whirlpool actually in the copper itself.
Yeah, so like I say, it's a pretty old school kit, so it's not got a separate whirlpool or anything. So basically, at the end of boil, what we do is it's the same pump that it comes out through the underback, but we send it through there, and it goes all the way around through a heat exchange, and then we cool it down to 80 degrees in kettle. And like I say, it's not a great whirlpool, so we don't tend to whirlpool very heavily. It'll be compared to some other breweries, it's quite like we only usually put like a bag of hops in. Like I say, we'll whirlpool 80 degrees, and it'll just be the rest of the bag of Rakau that is left, so it'll be like 4.4 kilograms in the whirlpool. With some, with like West Coasty beers, we would push up a bit, but we tend to, like I say, because our whirlpool's not great, we tend to do more dip hop in FV because we find we get better extraction compared to what we're doing. We find if we use a lot of it in the whirlpool, we're kind of wasting a lot of the kind of flavour and aroma you're going to get off those hops.
Got it.
Whereas if we dip hop, we're getting more off it.
One of the important things for us recreating the recipe will be the contact time for those whirlpool hops.
Yeah.
So about how long does it take you to transfer the full volume from the kettle?
I'd say it's about an hour and a half on average.
So the works in the tank, what yeast we using?
For Milson, we use saturated from WHC. We use it for most of our hazy beers. It's very reliable, so pretty good to use for a beer we want to be very consistent.
Flavour profile on that is relatively...
It's fairly fruity. It's not like overly so. We don't look for... With our hoppy beers, we're not looking for like loads off the yeast. We kind of want the hops to be more of the star. So it's it gives a bit of fruit, but it's not like aggressively fruity like some yeast you may use for a hazy.
And what temperature?
So for Milson, we start fermentation at 18 and then raise it to 20 the following day and just finish the whole fermentation at 20 degrees.
Any process aids you're using in there at all? I'm thinking about diac production or...
Not in Milson. We'd use ALDC in a lot of the bright beers because that's where we tend to notice more issues with diac. But with Milson, what we tend to do is at the end of firm, we just drop it to 16 degrees and then we'll dry hop. And then 2 days after dry hop, we'll do a forced diac test just to see if we can notice any diac in the product. If we notice any diac, we'll chill it to 12 and wait another day. And then if that's still any diac on it, we'd probably then maybe add some ALDC, but we've never had to do it for a hazy beer.
Right, okay, that's interesting. The dry hop profile, and this is where the beer really comes alive.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about your process for dry hopping?
Yeah, so like I say, we drop it to 16. We've tried 14 and 16 a couple of times. We've not noticed a huge difference when we've done Milson. But yeah, we'll drop it to 16. We'll leave it for 2 days. We'll crop any yeast off because we tend to repitch yeast to about 6 gen. So after the yeast has been taken off, we'll then dry hop it. The way we dry hop is that we attach CO2 into the racking arm of our tank and turn that on while we're dry hopping to make sure there's no oxygen getting into the tank. And it's also dispersing the hops around the tank as it goes.
So you're using CO2 to rouse hops.
Exactly, And then we'll throw all the hops in just directly through the top of the tank. And then the next day we will do a rouse from the bottom of the tank just to make sure the hops are again getting good contact with the beer. And then the following day after that, that's when we would then start to do our diac tests and look at chilling it to 0.
So what's the normal fermentation time for Milson?
It'll be a 5-day fermentation. Then we do the leave it for 2 days, take the yeast off. Then we would do the dry hop and it would be in there for 2 days. Then we would chill, and then the carb time is about 5 or 6 days. So the hops will probably be in contact with the beer for like a week or more.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really important because that, again, us trying to recreate this is all really handy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those ones where it's something we do all the time. So it's like,
Yeah.
you don't think of it as a different process to what people are doing. So
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, this is actually, no one does this.
Right, yeah. Then obviously out the tank and onto packaging.
We tend to keg and can Milson in general. It shifts mostly through keg. You know, we can on our own size, so we've got a micro can 5-head filler. It's pretty efficient, pretty good.
Yeah.
We've done the occasional cask batch of Milson. It's one of those ones where it's very nice, but it's not like 5.2% hazy in cask. It's not like a massive fast seller.
Yeah.
But when we do it, usually we'll do it like once a year maybe, and it'll shift fairly quickly. But it tends to be the majority of what we shift is through like 50-litre kegs, like permanent lines and stuff around Manchester. So we just started transfer. You can probably hear the pump in the background.
I can definitely hear the pump in the background, Sean. Yeah.
So it's probably about time we go back next door, kind of talk some general tips about the beer, kind of have a chat.
Awesome. And a beer.
And a beer.
Thank you very much, Sean.
You're welcome.
And talking of head retention.
Yeah, it definitely holds it and it definitely jiggles.
It's a cracking looking beer. Thank you very much.
No worries.
So before we were kind of interrupted by a pump,
Yeah.
we were talking about the dry hop. Can you tell us about the dry hop for Milson?
Yeah, so it's 3 hops in the dry hop. It's Citra, Mosaic, Galaxy. Well, I should probably say Mosaic first because that's the highest proportion, and then Citra and Galaxy are equal parts. It's about 12 grams a litre. In our like 30 hec brew, it'd be 15 kilograms of Mosaic, then 10 kilograms each of Citra and Galaxy. You know, it gives it a nice balance between the, you've got 2 American hops and an Australian hop, so you kind of got the more kind of stone fruitiness off the Citra and the Mosaic, and to give it like a roundness, and then the Galaxy kind of punching through with that sort of Australian like petrol sharpness almost.
Yeah, and actually, the Galaxy in the drinking of the beer, the Galaxy's definitely there. It's a Galaxy can give such an independent flavour. There really isn't another hop like it.
Yeah, it's very distinctive. Like we had a kind of, so we've been brewing Milson since we nearly opened, and it's kind of changed throughout the years. So we kind of had a point where we like upped the amount of Galaxy, and then we lowered it because it was given like too much flavour, and then it's kind of settled out again. So I think we're in a good place with where it is at the moment. It's kind of seems to be very balanced now.
I know that for the Galaxy crop, actually, they now homogenise the whole lot and pelletise the whole lot. So it's become a much more consistent hop, which obviously for a commercial brewery just makes it so much easier to use, much more reliable. We've had a complete rundown of the recipe and how you actually make the beer here. What I'd really like to get across is how we can recreate the beer so that when you try it, we can get a real high opinion from yourself, which would be really interesting, but also from our customers as well.
Yeah.
What are your sort of main tips?
One of the main things we focus on is drinkability. So it's kind of we have a couple ways that we kind of focus on that. I think compared to a lot of other beers in its style, Milson, we tend to attenuate a little lower than other places. So it's like it's not as sweet. It's kind of, you're getting kind of sweetness off the hops and stuff. It's not thin, but it's not like cloyingly thick or anything. Like another thing is like our water chemistry. We maybe go a little higher on the sulfate than other people. I think kind of going high on like calcium chloride is what a lot of people do, whereas we kind of push up the sulfate a little, kind of gives you kind of a dryness at the end, kind of less sort of cloying. Again, like less cloying. It's kind of like a dryness at the end that kind of makes you want to sip again.
Yeah.
Whereas like sometimes you kind of have a beer and it's like you have a sip and you're like, oh, it's very nice, but then you have like half a pint and you're like, oh well, it's nice, but it's a bit much.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas it's kind of finding that balance where it's like hoppy and fruity and but also then still sessionable.
Drinks so nicely for a 5.2% pale. It's just and your core, one of your core beers as such. I'm not surprised it sells really well.
Yeah, like it can be dangerous because like it doesn't really drink like a 5.2. So you kind of have like 4 pints and you feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen how the beer's made. You've given us some amazing tips on how to recreate this. We are going to shoot back to Malt Miller. We're going to brew it next week. And there'll be a part 2 where we're going to actually send you some beer and you're going to try it. I'm actually really interested to see how you think that we've done.
It's not a ridiculously complex beer, so
it's not for you because you brew it.
Well,
We can recount.
Yeah, true. Maybe Maybe we know how it's brewed, I guess.
Yeah.
I think you'll do well.
I must say, on behalf of Malt Miller and actually all of our customers, thanks very much for your generosity in sharing the recipe, because the brewing industry is absolutely amazing, and this is testament to just how good the people are. So thank you very much, Sean.
No worries. Thanks for coming down as well.
Thank you.